You are being observed, and these are not spies or satellites, but the people around you. Every colleague, client, friend, or rival is carefully watching your behavior, reactions, and words to find a way to gain an advantage. They are curious about what drives you, what makes you retreat, and how far you can be pushed. If you believe that openness and sincerity will protect you in the real world, I have bad news. Once people can read you, they can control you. Every word you speak, every emotion you display gives them a tool, a weak point, a prediction of how you will act next. According to Machiavellian standards, visibility is vulnerability. As Niccolo Machiavelli said, everyone sees how you appear, but only a few know how you truly are. In other words, a wise leader or a powerful player must learn the art of disguise, being friendly, polite, yet strategically impenetrable. There is power in being close, yet inaccessible, warm, yet mysterious, familiar, yet simultaneously unfamiliar. I call this the principle of polite distance, and it is neither rudeness nor coldness, and certainly not insincerity. It is the art of controlling how much people know about you while giving them the impression that they know enough. This is how kings survive in courts full of intrigue, how chief executive officers remain above the fray in the office, how clever individuals keep manipulators at bay without resorting to weaponry. It is not about being fake, but about being dangerous without raising your voice. In the end, you will learn how to command respect without revealing yourself, how to use silence, stillness, and ambiguity as tools of power, and how to make people curious about who you really are without giving them an answer. After all, when people cannot read you, they cannot manipulate you. Welcome to the tactics of Machiavelli and the cold, controlled power of polite distance. So, what is polite distance? It is not evasion, passive aggression, or emotional coldness. Polite distance is strategic fluctuation. It is the conscious space you maintain between yourself and others, not in a physical sense, but in psychological accessibility. You smile, engage, listen, but do not explain, do not reveal, and do not give people a map of your mind. You allow them to feel warmth while remaining one step outside the inner circle. It is not about building walls, but maintaining a buffer zone between your reality and their perception. A space that allows you to observe clearly while remaining enigmatic. Let us look at a historical example. Queen Elizabeth I of England was surrounded by suitors, politicians, foreign ambassadors, and admirers. All of them tried to decipher her, influence her, or draw her into marriage. But Elizabeth mastered the art of polite distance. She was known for her charm, intelligence, and charisma. She danced, laughed, and skillfully flipped through pages, but she never allowed anyone to get emotionally or politically close to her. Her personal life remained a mystery. Her political calculations were unpredictable, and no one could anticipate her next move. She once said, "I have the heart and stomach of a king, and even the King of England." But what she did not say, and what made her powerful, was that her surroundings never knew which king she was referring to. She made them guess, and that kept them cautious. This is polite distance. Let us bring this into our times. Think about the people in your life who are always kind, always respectful, always present, yet you never know what is on their minds. They are impossible to read. You do not know them in full opinions, and they do not share their insecurities, disappointments, or inner doubts. You trust them, but you do not control them. That is the essence. A light distance allows you to shape how others perceive you without giving them power over you. It is a way to protect your strength without needing to demonstrate it. In contrast, Think about people who openly express their feelings, who complain on social media, who voice their opinions to colleagues, who share too much on first dates or interviews. They may seem genuine, but they are open and easily understood, which means they are easily manipulated, easily predictable, and thus easily defeated. If they are offended, they are labeled emotional. If they change course, they are called inconsistent. Because once people think they know you, they expect rights over your behavior, and that is a trap. Polite distance allows you to avoid this and gives you control over your image. Without revealing too much and without exposing your essence, as MGVL would say, it is about maintaining the illusion of virtue while preserving your core strength. Because appearance is useful, but only when you control what is visible. We live in an age obsessed with visibility, where we are told to open up, to be open, vulnerable, and authentic, to share our thoughts, stories, and struggles as if mere disclosure is strength. But here is the MGVL truth. The more people see, the easier it is to predict you. And what is predictable is subject to control. Let us consider this from a psychological perspective. People are programmed to assess threats and opportunities based on patterns when someone is emotionally expressive. When they are easy to read, those around them instinctively learn how to influence them. This is not always malicious. Sometimes it is subconscious, but once your colleagues, competitors, or even friends know how you will react to pressure, praise, rejection, or criticism, they gain a tactical advantage over you. Take a modern example, Elon Musk. At the beginning of his public life, Musk was impulsive. He would hastily post on social media, revealing personal crises, stresses within the company, and even strange humor. And what happened? The media pounced, investors panicked, and regulators intervened. Every time he shared too much, the system reacted. As soon as the internal mechanisms of your mind become visible, those around you begin to shape their actions around you. But notice how Musk has changed. He has become more mysterious, multi-layered, theatrical, yes, but also less predictable. Now he operates with deliberate ambiguity. Every tweet is a puzzle, every statement a hidden door. This shift has restored his control not only over perception, but also over strategic timing. This lesson from the ancient Machiavelli warned rulers not to wear their hearts on their sleeves. In The Prince, he wrote that a prince should be like a fox to recognize traps and like a lion to scare off wolves, but should not openly display either of these natures. In other words, your strengths, fears, and loyalties must be concealed. To show everything is to give up the game. Think back to the last time someone shared too much with you. Perhaps a colleague confided in you more than they should have. A manager displayed uncertainty, or a friend opened up emotionally in an inappropriate setting. Did your respect for them increase, or did you gain an advantage? Frankly, that is how the human mind works. We are drawn to confidence, mystery, and selective openness, rather than complete transparency. Consider how this manifests in everyday life. In politics, excessive openness can ruin a campaign. In business, founders who display vulnerability lose the trust of investors. In relationships, those who confess too early and too often lose emotional leverage. The rule is simple: society needs to be managed. Excessive openness, even in the name of honesty, often turns out to be a leak of power disguised as transparency. If you want to be strong, be friendly. If you want to be safe, be reserved. But if you want to remain in control, be strategically inscrutable. The mistake most people make is simple. They think that to be loved, one must be open. They believe that friendliness requires intimacy and therefore share too much. They ironically try to create a connection by giving others access to their inner world. But from Machiavelli's perspective, this is a strategic error. Being loved is a tool. Being understood is a risk. The more people are familiar with your personal rhythms, the less they respect your position. Let's clearly define the difference. Friendliness is how you relate to others. Intimacy is how much of yourself you give to them. You can smile, ask questions, and make people feel heard. This does not mean they can read your intentions, emotions, or plans. Polite distance thrives in this space. You show warmth without sacrificing your center. You create comfort without allowing intrusion. You control the boundaries. Let's take an example from business. Tim Cook, the Chief Executive Officer of Apple. Tim Cook is known for being calm, polite, and respectful. He gives interviews, attends events, and leads one of the most prominent companies in the world. But have you noticed something? You never really know what he is truly thinking. He is calm, unflustered, and does not advertise his emotions. His presence is measured, his tone controlled, and his boundaries are inviolable. This is not a coincidence. It is a strategy. His strength does not lie in loudness or dominance, but rather in being the quietest person in the room while maintaining maximum control. That is why he avoids close relationships, even with the media, shareholders, or employees. He retains power through composure. In contrast, once you become too close to people, they stop seeing your role and begin to notice your flaws. They stop following you and start looking for weaknesses. They cease to fear your boundaries and begin to feel entitled to cross them. Intimacy is the enemy of authority. This does not mean you should be cold. It means you must set the tone for how others interact with you. So how can this be done in practice? Ask more questions than you answer. Be kind, but not overly revealing. Share facts, not emotions. If someone insists, deflect with humor or show curiosity. You are not obligated to disclose your feelings to those who have not yet earned your trust. Let them guess. Let them interpret. Let them fill in the gaps. You control the frame, and you control the game. Polite distance does not mean you will not be liked. In fact, people are often drawn more strongly to those they cannot fully decipher. They are intrigued, they project, they lean in. And this is where your strength lies, not in revealing, but in managed impenetrability. If people always know what you are thinking, you have lost half the game before it even begins. Certainty is comforting, but in the dynamics of power, ambiguity is far more effective. When your motives are unclear, others cannot predict your actions. When your emotions are unreadable, they cannot exploit your weaknesses. And when your boundaries are indefinite, people are cautious because they do not know what to expect. This is not confusion, it is control. Strategic ambiguity means leaving space for others to guess. And it is their guessing that costs them energy, creating a constant, subtle tension around you. They do not know if you are angry, impressed, disappointed, or amused. Therefore, they self-correct. They hesitate. They try harder. They expend mental resources trying to interpret your silence, your pause, your gaze. And all this time, you remain a steady frame. History is full of masters of this technique. Take, for example, Julius Caesar. Before he crossed the Rubicon and sparked a civil war, Caesar played a long game of ambiguity. He downplayed his intentions. He flattered the Senate and sent mixed signals about his political ambitions. Why? Because once your plans become visible, resistance begins. But ambiguity delays resistance. No one wants to move against what they cannot define. By the time Caesar made his move, it was too late to stop him. He had already destabilized the system with silence. Such is the power of unreadability. Strategic ambiguity also operates in modern contexts, especially in business and politics. When a chief executive officer postpones the announcement of their strategy, competitors scramble to prepare for any possibility. When a political candidate gives vague yet charismatic answers, their supporters project their own hopes onto them. When a leader remains calm in a crisis, the organization settles not because of the facts, but because of their presence. Machiavelli warned that for a prince, it is not so much about possessing all the good qualities, but rather about appearing to possess them. It is this apparent impression that arises from ambiguity. You neither confirm nor deny. You allow others to fill the silence with their imagination. And this, paradoxically, gives you more control over the narrative than if you were to explain directly. The rule is this: do not be a closed book. Be a book with missing pages. Provide enough information to intrigue, but never so much that you can be predicted. Because uncertainty does not make people doubt you. It compels them to respect your depth. If words are weapons, then silence is the sharpest blade. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill gaps in conversation. They over-explain. They nervously joke. They speak more than necessary, simply because they fear the tension associated with the absence of speech. But it is in that tension, in that discomfort, that true power lies. Silence, when used with intention, destabilizes people. It makes them think. It makes them feel vulnerable. It creates a vacuum of power, and the human brain hates vacuums. In negotiations, in leadership, in everyday dynamics of power, silence is a signal. I am not in a hurry. You move first. Let's see how this works in real life. In interviews, most candidates talk too much. They answer the question and then continue speaking, hoping to impress. But a truly confident candidate answers clearly and then waits. The interviewer feels uncomfortable and begins to reveal more than they intended. This gives an advantage. In negotiations, the one who speaks first after an offer often loses ground. Why? Because silence after a figure creates pressure. The other side waits for confidence or a reaction. When they receive nothing, they adjust their position simply to ease the atmosphere. Silence has gravity, and when you master it, others revolve around you. Remember Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor of Germany. She was known for her silence in meetings, often allowing others to argue, discuss, and demonstrate their positions. She would sit, listen, and speak little. But when she finally did speak, everyone listened, because her silence made her words valuable. She did not seek to dominate. She allowed silence to create weight. This is particularly Machiavellian, as silence can mean anything: agreement, disapproval, strategy, power, mystery. It compels others to define their positions while you remain ambiguous. Machiavelli wrote that the first way to assess a ruler's intelligence is to look at the people surrounding him. But here is a modern twist. The first way to measure power is to observe who controls the silence. If you are always the one explaining, defending, or clarifying, you do not control the situation. But if you can remain calm while others try to understand you, you win without making a single move. Start small. Hold back your response. Let silence occupy the space. Observe how people react when you are silent. Learn to resist the urge to fill every pause, because sometimes the most destructive action is inaction. In a world obsessed with telling one's story, excessive openness has become the norm. To publish, share, and express one's traumas, frustrations, and opinions at every moment Every detail, every thought is presented as authenticity. But from a power perspective, it is a leak, not illumination. Let's break this down. Every piece of information you share, especially emotional ones, provides people with data. They know what upsets you. They know what delights you. They know how to draw you into drama, how to flatter you, how to provoke you. You hand them a map of your mind, and all your vulnerabilities are clearly marked. Think about it. Have you ever listened to someone for too long and ended up respecting them less? Not because of what they said, but because of how much they said. They gave you too much access. They exposed their patterns, their need for recognition, their inner chaos. And suddenly, they no longer seemed powerful. They became predictable. The lesson from Machiavelli is harsh but clear. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two must be absent. This does not mean being cruel. It means protecting your mystery, because once people feel they know you, they stop fearing you, stop respecting you, and begin to control you. Let's look at social media. A person who posts every thought, every emotional upheaval, every victory and disaster becomes public property. They may receive likes, but they lose leverage and influence. They turn their inner life into a product, and once people consume it, they move on to something else. In relationships, excessive openness in the early stages often leads to emotional imbalance. You feel seen, but you also feel exposed. Another person gains power before trust is established. It is better to express less and gradually build depth than to open up excessively and create imbalance. To correct this, simply be a mirror, not a microphone. Let others reveal themselves. Let them speak. Let them fill the space. And when they ask about you, share facts. Tell stories with limitations. Make them feel closeness without giving them your inner self. This is not manipulation. It is discipline. It is strength. If there is one skill that Niccolò Machiavelli would demand from every modern strategist, it is this: become a master of observation. Let others talk while you watch, learn, and speak little. Most people desperately want to be heard and understood, and this desperation is a gift for those who can listen with purpose. They will tell you everything, their fears, their ambitions, their vulnerabilities, if you simply give them the illusion of safety. Your role is to remain curious, to stay quiet. In any room, most people speak either to be admired or to help themselves feel confident. Let them continue, for you are not there to impress, but to study. When you listen more than you speak, you become the holder of asymmetric information, and that is true power. Machiavelli expressed it this way: people judge more by their eyes than by their hands, because anyone can see, but many can feel. In other words, most believe what they see and hear, but few know what they are truly dealing with until it is too late. You act the opposite way. First you feel, then you act, while remaining impenetrable. Here is a real-life strategy. In meetings, let others speak. Ask leading questions, and then observe what they share. In negotiations, allow your opponent to fill the silence. People hate uncertainty and will share information to calm themselves. In social situations, offer presence rather than presentation. The quieter you are, the more others perceive you as confident. Paradoxically, the less you speak, the more power they project onto you. I once studied a chief executive officer who led thousands of employees. He was described as warm yet mysterious. Everyone liked him, but no one truly knew him. In meetings, he rarely spoke first, listened, took notes, allowed others to reveal their plans, and then made precise moves based on the information gathered. He built alliances without revealing his goals, and when he acted, no one expected it. This is polite distance in action. You create trust without granting access, study motives without revealing your own, and allow others to feel noticed while remaining strategically unnoticed. There is a type of presence that fills the room without uttering a word. It is not loud, not theatrical, and does not dominate in the traditional sense. It is calm, focused, and emotionally self-sufficient. This is the final layer of polite distance. It is not just what you say, but how you exist. Most people broadcast their internal storms. You can feel their stress, uncertainty, and desire to be loved, even when they are silent. Their energy is chaotic, uncontrolled, and permeable, and because of this, they lose their audience even before they open their mouths. Machiavelli did not speak the language of energy, but he understood possession as a form of control. In his view, a prince should never appear shaken. Regardless of the crisis, he must seem calm, for visibility creates stability, even when reality is engulfed in flames. A wise prince must act in such a way that his subjects always look at him with respect and confidence. In other words, never let them see you sweat. Let us return to the historical figure. Cesare Borgia, in an era of chaos, betrayal, conspiracies, and political upheaval, radiated calmness. He was not passive nor indifferent. He was simply restrained. His composure did not signify weakness, but left others feeling anxious because they did not know what he was thinking or when he would strike. Now compare this to modern leaders who clearly panic. Their energy is transmitted to their teams. Their instability becomes a collective anxiety. They talk too much, apologize too often, blame others, and lose control not due to a lack of skills, but due to a lack of composure. You do not need to be cold, but it is essential to maintain steadiness. When you manage your emotional state, your posture, tone, breathing, and pace, you become anchored in any situation, and those around you begin to orient themselves to you. You become the reference point. Therefore, practice holding pauses, even if they feel awkward. Slow your breathing when tension rises. Lower your voice when others raise theirs, and learn to observe your emotions without reacting to them. This is not passivity, but mastery. Because when others react and you remain calm, you control not only yourself but also them. We have reached the end, and now it is time to engrave this in stone. If you take away only one lesson from this entire strategy, let it be this: polite distance is not a weakness. It is protection, positioning, and strength. You do not need to be harsh to be invulnerable. You do not need to be arrogant to earn respect. You do not need to isolate yourself to be impenetrable. You simply need to master the art of presence without vulnerability. Let others feel closeness. Let them talk. Let them share. Let them think they are penetrating within, but keep your center closed. Do not explain yourself. Do not confess. Do not rush to be understood. As Machiavelli warned, people are susceptible to external impressions, and whoever controls them controls the outcome of events. Therefore, carefully craft your image, decide what will be visible, choose what will be heard, and leave the rest in the shadows. Because when people cannot read you, they project strength onto you. When they cannot predict you, they prepare for anything, and when they cannot approach you, they begin to respect you. Now the choice is yours, to continue or to allow the world to read you like an open book, or to become someone who listens, observes, and acts when it truly matters.